I hear a beep in my ear, and that can only mean one thing. There he is, Mike O'Brien. Okay, we have been discussing and watching and listening to all afternoon while you have been on the road in Canton up there in Karen Reed.
Yes,
What do you have to
yes.
report?
Melee. I'll tell you one thing. As everybody left the courtroom, and they left the building separately. It was Alessi, Alan Jackson just ahead of him, but Karen Reed left a few minutes later on her own and kind of to the other direction. She was with Yannetti, but so not a like a big united front as they usually are. But here's what I found most interesting: Alessi wouldn't answer a question. Jackson wouldn't answer a question. These folks are usually a little chatty on the way in and out of the courtroom. Said nothing, which to me says this is a little bit serious. Okay, regardless of what they believe the facts are, what the court should rule, it's up in the air, and it's a question that could affect them very directly, and more importantly, their client very
Right.
directly. Now, when Karen Reed left, chatty as she might always be, and Yannetti did say that he thought Mr. Alessi did a great job. Alessi wouldn't answer that question when I asked him. I said, "How do you think it went today?" And it was the guy. The guy is kind of like a dual personality. You see this very articulate and confident, for the most part, orator, right, when he's advocating, but otherwise he's kind of a mousy little guy. And I say that as a mousy little guy.
You
So,
are not. You are not. You got great
so,
presence.
so that was interesting, I thought. But Karen Reed was asked by somebody in the scrum. This was a painful scrum. I ran into a telephone pole. Uh,
Wow.
she was asked about what happens if one of her attorneys is removed. Obviously, Alan Jackson. She said, I think she was asked, "What does that mean?" And she says, "Appeal." So she's already been conditioned to the what ifs in this case. And if one of her attorneys, Alan Jackson, were to be removed, she knows that it has some impact down the road. Obviously, well after this trial. So, what are your thoughts as we heard from Brennan? And I guess, to be clear, I believe they're done with the issue now. She led a lot of back and forth, back and forth. They should be
Right.
done with the
Right.
issue. So we could get a decision on this in the next day or so.
Right.
And I think she'll want to clear that plate before next week's
Oh
full
yes.
throated
Yeah.
motion to dismiss, as well as the federal matter, which is going to be Wednesday morning. You heard the judge, I think,
Right.
tell the attorneys, yeah, go see the feds first, and then join us here, and that'll be for Wednesday. But Tuesday will be a normal court day here with a number of motions still up in the air. So again, what'd you think?
Well, I thought I think first of all, I said I think you heard me say I think Alessi gave her a way out to say, look, you had a discovery violation, and what I'll do is I'll decide after this trial, and that keeps the ball in the air, afterwards about what I'm going to do about it. But right now we're going forward with this trial as is, and that you prosecutors, you have all the information. You can cross-examine on those emails. If there's any more, the defense has to turn them over to you. But you can cross any emails, any communications you had with ARCA. So there you go. No harm, no prejudice for this trial. And that way she keeps the ball over the head of everybody, could I smack you on the hands? I think that for her to remove, she has researched this issue because she did ask the question about, isn't there a difference between admission and revocation of a pro hoc vice, right? And that was a pretty big question. And whoa, they liked that question too. They thought
Yeah.
that was a pretty big question also. So I don't think she's going to remove Alan Jackson. I
Yeah,
just think that
I don't think
it
so
causes too
either.
much problems, right?
But I do agree with. Please, patience, Matt. I do agree with the thought that hanging this out there like they did, especially with the judge's grave concerns. I mean, that truly went viral, and that has a negative impact, no matter what the ultimate decision is by the court. So I think the judge has to be careful. However she handles this after her grave concerns. I think Brendan made a couple of very good points. One of them being he kept pounding away on there has to be something more. There must be something more, something we're missing, because between these emails and this invoice, you're telling me no conversations, no communications of any kind took place between anybody on the defense team and these experts. That invoice just was generated out of whole cloth. If nothing else, the question's hanging in the air, and it's not an unreasonable question.
Yeah, but here's the problem I have. They have the invoice, right? So if there's a line item, there's only one call with Alan Jackson that they mentioned, right? If there's the line items, it would show the communications. And Brennan complained about the one call we don't know was said with that one
Right.
call.
That's
But we
right.
don't even know how much. Was it 1 minute? Was it 2 minutes? Was it see you in court? Blah blah blah. And that's the and the judge could have asked AJ about that, right? She could have put him under oath
And
and asked him.
she did ask all the attorneys if they had anything to say that would be contradictory to what Alessi had argued, but they all said, no, we agree. And Alan Jackson had a little clarification. My point is, it's still hanging in the air. We don't know how long the phone conversation was. We don't have the billing detail in front of us. I think if it had been a longer call, it would have been highlighted perhaps by Brennan. But we don't know. How long does it take to say, look, it'd be great if you focused on A, B, and C. What, I just did that in 8 seconds. So you have a minute phone call. It could be damning if it's the right subject in that phone call. We just don't know. And I think to leave that question out there was a good move by Brennan.
And then he'll attack at a trial. But I think what's happened here now is here's where the prosecution became effective. And this is where I disagree with. They have now, in a way, taken the ARCA experts, which were paid by the government. You heard Alessi say, wait a second, they were paid by the government, they were paid by the government, they were paid by the government, they were paid by the government at the very end, right? And that's what they're going to say at trial, obviously, that their reports are still independent, they were paid by the government. But you've taken them, put them under like a cloud, as Alessi said, of like ghosts, right? He didn't use the word goblins, but of ghosts, right? And the same with now Alan Jackson. You've taken it for the public view when you have this jury selection and putting them under a cloud, even if they don't deserve to be under that cloud.
Here's a question I don't think was answered. You keep saying, I think you said about 7 times, they paid for the feds paid for it. Well, the invoice in the end was paid for by the defense. So what was paid for at the time of retention by the feds? I don't know.
I'm sure that. And you may not be able to get that as a bill.
Of course. But my point is, it's undisputed that the defense paid $24,000, give or take.
After they testified. I think that was for them coming to trial and expressing their opinion.
Whatever. Right. We're speculating. We have no idea. But it would be so much cleaner for the defense if the feds paid for everything, that there wasn't a bill hanging out there that the defense paid for. And they did.
But the contract had ended, so the feds weren't paying for anything after that.
And the question becomes, did this company just send out the invoice hoping for the best? Or were they prompted to do so in the shortest of phone calls, in the shortest of communications that are not documented? We don't know.
I think if the phone, if it's the way that Alessi says it, what clearly happened to me is that the feds thought that the feds were paying for them all, right? And then somehow the contract ended, and then and everyone decided, the experts said, hey, wait a second, we're not being paid for by the feds either. We got to bill somebody for this time, right? We just testified, and they sent out a bill of Jackson, who they testified to her. And they say, what's this?
That's what bothered me a little bit, was the rapidity. That means fast. How fast they paid that bill. They got the bill.
Was it 2 weeks or no?
No, 2 days.
2 days?
They made the call. It was confirmed by the feds that, yeah, that's legit. However, they did that. And then they wrote the check. So I'm a little concerned about that. That would be, I'm not paying a bill that drops in out of the sky and, without some serious investigation. But that's what happened over the 2 days. So let's talk about the ultimate impact. Let's assume that the judge decides there was some misrepresentation, negligent, maybe more. What's going to happen? I think we both agree that the Sixth Amendment and other considerations calendar considerations, among others, prevent the removal of Alan Jackson from the case. Can we agree with that?
I think so, right.
Okay, so then let's just talk other sanctions. And I know that Brennan kind of waffled back and forth. He suggested that Alessi was trying to mix Rule 14 violations with the rules of professional conduct, and that's 3.381. They both allow for sanctions, but it's just a different remedy, and it's tough to cross those streams. You really have to go one way or the other. Those sanctions could include, slap on the wrist, don't do it again. How many times we heard those? It could be monetary sanctions. It could be evidentiary sanctions, where she could prevent all or part of these witnesses from testifying. Again, unlikely. Or you could have the ultimate termination sanctions. And I don't think that's happening either. So right. I think
you and I both agree on that.
I would bet on a slap on the wrist, a warning that I'm watching you, Let's not even raise these questions in the future. Let's have a clean fight. If your Mills Lane, let's get it on. The guy he's refereeing the boxing matches. Let's have a clean fight. Okay, I've seen what's going on here, and it's not clear enough that I can punish anybody, but I'm watching.
Yeah, yeah. And by the way, I remind everyone too that remember after the other trial, again the prosecution came out and said immediately they were retrying her. So if I'm getting a bill from my main independent experts who were hired by the federal government, I really think the case turned upon, right? If that's your evaluation because they supported the two medical examiners, I'm paying that bill right away too. Okay.
Yep. I get that. That's back to my thought about result-oriented billing. I get it. I understand that, but it just isn't as clean as it could be. So let's talk about. There was also related to the payment. There was this question about from Brennan the expectation of payment, right? That somehow makes it look like they're less independent because they want to get paid, right? So they want to do what leads to them getting paid. And so he just leaves that thought hanging that maybe their testimony was somehow structured with the end game being, we want to get paid.
And of course, when they're asked, these guys are going to be professional. I'm sure they're going to say to the effect, "Look, I work for a business. They build. I don't have any. I just like we build the federal government, and they paid us. We did our work. We were paid for our time. We're paid for our expertise. And I don't even know about the defense. I had no axe to grind. I had nothing. I was asked to do this, and that's what we did. We did this, and we came and told you about it because we were required to come and told you about it by a subpoena, or whatever." And quite frankly, our work doesn't change on who, we were hired by the government. Usually when we're hired by the government, we're expected to confirm a prosecution, not say there should be no prosecution, so I mean, I can see them doing that to the jury too.
Yeah. And the question Brennan brought up, and it's, the horse has left this barn. He said, these disclosures should have been made before the first trial, or at the very least, before any of the questions arose in that trial about the propriety of that interest between the defense and these experts. And it really trickled out and became, the invoice, remember, was after the trial ended. And so he suggested, look, we wanted to be able to examine that bias. That's bias that we could have examined on cross, that this jury in the first trial would have heard about. Who knows? Could have affected the case. Okay, well, let's assume all that's true, just for fun. So what? You're getting a second trial.
Right.
It's not like it's over. You got to. What would be the remedy otherwise? Well, new trial maybe if the chips fell as they needed to. But the bottom line is, you're getting a second trial. So bitch all you want about this. If it happened as you suggest, we're going round two.
Yeah. So they're getting a second trial. The only thing that's different now is that the jury pool has heard all this, and I truly think that it affects Karen Reed badly, not badly, but it affects her in the sense that the jury pool is going to hear all this, and just like people always, when somebody is charged with something, they always assume you're guilty, or some people even get not guilty. Even people who are wrongfully convicted and there have been convictions overturned. There's a whole group of percentage that still believes they're guilty, and that you put this cloud under her right now just before jury selection. I think the prosecution achieved what they wanted to.
No doubt that anytime you can, there's a stink. There's a stink in the air, and anytime you can do that to muddy the waters. I think one of the words, I think I wrote it down here, was it mushy or was it
murky?
Murky. There you go. It's murky. And that doesn't help the defense anytime you create a murkiness. And so we'll see what happens next week with some more traditional motions that are going to be heard. We'll come back.
Do you remember what those are, Michael? Because you're going to be back for that. I know you got to get on the road.
I know I can't remember the specifics, but they're mostly traditional discovery motions. I think there's something having to do with more video. Remember, there was an effort to resurrect the video from the Sally Port that was missing. And then it was not missing, and then apparently some officer who's now retired made a copy of it. So I'm not sure that has been turned over yet, and so we can see. Speaking of ghosts, who knows what's going to show up on any videos of that Sally Port, whether inverted or not, right?
Right.
I mean, that could be who knows what. And speaking of misconduct, I mean, all of this, even if 100% true, pales in comparison to the inverted video. You know,
Right.
it's
Right.
just
Right.
not even a close call.
Right. You're
But here we are.
absolutely. But here we are, and here you are, who have drove up for 3 hours today to get there, has to drive back 3 hours to cover this case. But any other final thoughts
That's
before
what
we
I'm
announce what's
just.
happening tomorrow
I'm just
night?
checking my chicken scratchings here to see if
Yeah.
there's anything else that I thought was noteworthy. I asked, like I said, Alan Jackson didn't answer anything, but I asked a few questions like, so how do you think the court's going to respond? And then I said, what's the remedy? Now, if I ask somebody what's the remedy, that assumes there's going to be a finding of wrongdoing, right? So he wasn't responsive to any of those questions, and I was surprised to see such a buttoned up departure by the defense counsel, because compared to normal departures, pretty chatty. So I think that's a sense. I'll leave you with this: that they're taking this seriously, however it ends.
Right. Right. And it should be taken seriously, because whatever it is, right or wrong, Brennan put it out there, and whether there's 10 misrepresentations or not, it's now out there. I have full faith the defense team did not do anything wrong, that this is not a violation of any ethics. If there is one thing they didn't turn over, I think Alessi has it right. Maybe a violation of discovery by not turning over that list. But some experts send you a list of questions he wants. I mean, quite frankly, you may not even print them out. All right.
So I think what we know for sure is that when the second appearance by these witnesses occurs in trial 2, they're going to have a lot more on cross-examination to play with. There's no doubt about that.
No doubt about that. So, Michael Brown, I want you to get back on the road. I should
Okay.
announce what's happening tomorrow night, though, before we say goodbye.
Yes.
Tomorrow night, you're going to be in trial all day tomorrow. So I will be hosting at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with a co-host, Neil Rockweiler. Neil Rockweiler. Neil Rockin.
The Rockweiler will be there. He's a great
guy.
And I'm sure you guys will have some fun.
Yeah, well, we're going to do Karen Reed. We're going to do a brand new article that just came out on John Lewin. The headline of it. Yeah, the headline. Let me just tell you the headline of it. So you want to all come back to watch.
Let's see. Was he elected Man of the Year? Was that what it was?
I don't think in this
Lawyer
article
Magazine
he
Man
was.
of the Month. No?
It was, and you can all get it. I don't know if we've tweeted it out yet or not. It's from the current. Hold on a second. I have
what's
current report.
What's the log line?
Disgraced yet still employed prosecutor John Lewin's ASAP Rocky trial meltdown becomes District Attorney Nathan Huckman's first major media disaster. So we're going to be discussing.
That's a mess. Just that headline is a mess. Yeah, you guys will have fun with that.
We're discussing that, and then we're going to answer all the questions from our viewers who they asked Monday night in our case of the week. Remember, we had the persons of the week with a jury from last week, and then we did about 9 different cases. And all the questions you asked will be answered tomorrow night by Neil and myself while you are working as a lawyer tomorrow night.
That's right. Well, you got do a little work here and there before we get back to play.
Yeah, and maybe we'll
Thursday. Who knows what we got going on?
Yeah, maybe we'll get to Yak Gotti tomorrow night. Let's put him on the list too, Dizzy, because he has a hearing tomorrow too. So let's add him.
Does he finally has his hearing tomorrow?
Yeah,
okay, good.
Dizzy and Missy, let's add him to the list tomorrow that I gave you for tomorrow night with Neil. So with that being said, Michael Bryan.
All right. Until next time, try to do the right thing.
And with Michael Bryan, I'm Linda Kenny Bodden. Together we are Justice Served TV. Please hit that like button. Subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything. Share. And also hit that notify button. And we will see, or at least I will see you tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.